Okay, hello and welcome to the last of the recordings of crisis cleanup training. And today we are going to just finish up talking about some of our more advanced additional items regarding the crisis cleanup website, and just a couple of additional pictures and screenshots to show you that are geared towards command centers and putting out work orders. So to begin, I just want to, particularly for phone volunteers, talk about some additional guidelines and expectations that may be helpful for you in taking your phone calls. First of all, phone volunteers take calls for all of the incidents that are currently open on crisis cleanup. So if there's an incident open in one particular state and another incident open in another state, you cannot request to only receive calls from one state. You just get all calls from all currently open incidents. Next, hotlines are usually active for 2 weeks. If the need exists, then that active date can be extended. After the hotline closes, all of that data still remains on the crisis cleanup website indefinitely. You can still add new cases to it. You can modify those cases even after the hotline is closed. You can find out when a hotline is closing by going to the news section on the phone page. It will tell you here are the current hotlines that are open and the dates that they close. Next, a lot of phone volunteers ask, and we've talked about this already in a previous training module, but just to restate it for you, crisis cleanup does not require phone volunteers to sign up or fill certain shifts or certain requirements, certain number of hours on the phones. At this time, we currently leave that choice up to the organization that the volunteers belong to. Some organizations do actually schedule their volunteers to fill certain hours and certain time slots, but we do not require that. It's important next to let survivors know that any debris or garbage that they clean up on a property is piled next to the curb on the street in front of the house. Work crews from volunteer organizations do not and cannot haul away that debris and garbage for people. The survivors can contact their local government for information on debris and garbage pickup. Depending on the incident and depending where it is located, different government agencies make different plans for how to help homeowners to get rid of that debris and garbage. As we have stated before, but to reiterate here, any questions that callers have that are not related to property cleanup and in crisis cleanup, you can refer them to 211. And if 211 is unavailable in their area, the news section of the phone page, which is, here it is again, the news section. We try to specify this and give you an alternate resource to refer callers to. Okay, next, a good idea is to have a pen and paper next to you when you're taking calls, specifically to write down the phone number of the person calling in, just in case you get disconnected. If you do get disconnected, you don't want to call them back through your private phone so they can see your phone number. What you want to do is go back to the phone page, click on this icon, the manual dialer button. Then you can type in the phone number of the person that you're trying to call and then hit dial. Then the phone system will call that person and connect that call, but the person that you're calling will not see your private phone number. One good idea is that before you take your very first phone call with crisis cleanup, you can call the hotline yourself and hear what the callers hear, and the information that they're given before they get connected to you. Another good idea is to repeat the required information back to the survivor to verify accuracy, particularly their phone number and their street address. Those are it's very important that those are input into the system correctly. And here we have a guideline regarding mold remediation. Again, we've briefly talked about this before in another module, but reiterating again, if people are asking for volunteers to come and scrape and spray and dry mold that is growing on their homes from flooding, or if they're asking to rebuild the damage that occurred to their home, you can tell the caller that you will record this information in the system, but to understand that there are a lot fewer volunteer organizations that actually do this kind of work. There are some, but less than organizations that just do general cleanup work. And this helps convey the realistic expectation that it is less likely that they'll receive this kind of help, but you can assure them that you are putting their their information on the map. Now, last of these additional guidelines, phone volunteers a lot of times ask, when should I work and how many hours should I work? So phone volunteers, it's important for all to pace yourselves to avoid burnout, which is very real and can happen. The people that you're talking to, many of them can be in very distressing and sometimes even traumatic situations, and it can take a toll. We always like to advise people that it's better to work a couple hours a day than to work long shifts of 8-10 hours. In really catastrophic disasters, when we're getting thousands of calls, we have had people work those long shifts, but that is up to the individual to decide. Again, we advise people to take breaks if they're going to work long shifts and try to avoid that burnout. One way to quickly determine how needed phone callers are is to go to the phone page and look at, of course, you can look at how many people are in the queues. Sometimes we'll have hundreds or even thousands of calls, either on hold or in the callback or call down queue. So obviously that's a sign that we need phone volunteers to be taking calls. Another one too is to look at the bar graph situation. And if there are a lot of cases, if there are a lot of phone calls, that's a good indicator. But particularly if the red, which indicates of how many of these calls that came in were missed, if the red is high and the blue section is small, that means that there were not phone volunteers on the phone, and most of those people went to leave a message, a voicemail message. And so that's another indicator that we are short on phone volunteers and are in need of people to get on the phones. So hopefully those additional guidelines and expectations can help phone volunteers to better serve and to better utilize their time. Now, last of all, I wanted to do a little bit of information that's a little more geared towards people in command centers. That means people in the volunteer organizations doing the work, doing the cleanup work, how they navigate around the system. And we have talked about a lot of these things throughout the training modules, the previous videos. But I would like to go over a couple things. First is command centers usually use the work page. Rarely do they use the phone page. And here is where they look on the map to find cases that they would like to claim for their organization, reserve to do the work. So when you want to claim an organization, or sorry, claim a case for your organization, you can click on that case on the map. Then if there is more than one work type being requested and your organization wants to claim and do all of those work types, you can hit claim all available work types. But let's say that you can do the debris and the muck out and the tarping, but you don't have chainsaws or experienced people to use chainsaws. You can just claim individual work types as well. So in this case, say that my organization wants to do these 3 work types, but we can't do this work type. This can remain open and unassigned for another organization to claim and do that. Let's say that I mistakenly unclaimed it, or we decided that we can't do this work. We can unclaim the work types and they will go back to being open and unassigned. As an example, let's say that our work crews were able to put a tarp on the house, but we're not able to do any of the other work. So this is completed. You click on the status and a pop-down window opens up that gives you several different options to choose from. So let's say that our organization did this work. So I'm going to mark this as closed and completed. Now, these still work types that are not yet done still show up as open and unassigned, so other organizations can claim and work on those. Let's say that we get to the house and the trees, particularly the main tree that's damaged that needs to be cut down, let's say that it is such a difficult job that you would say you would need heavy machinery like a crane. Or let's say that maybe the tree is leaning against a power line. And so a volunteer, relatively inexperienced volunteer crew cannot or should not be doing that job. And that you need to refer the homeowner to professionals to be able to take care of that situation in their home. What they can do is they can click on the status and they can say closed out of scope or closed and rejected, saying this is beyond our abilities. None of the volunteer work crews are going to be able to do this situation, take care of this situation. When you're done with all of these and any editing or changes you need to make under this work section, you can click done. And you'll see your case in the system reflecting that. Now, if you are claiming some of the work, let's claim this. Okay, my organization decides, okay, we want to claim and do the debris and the muck out work for this home. I need to print out a work order form for the work crews so they'll have a record of where to go and what to do. So after I claim those, I go up to the case specific icons at the top of the column and I click on the printer icon. Now what happens is it downloads a copy of the work order form to your computer. And different browsers and PCs versus Macs, excuse me, do this a little bit differently. And so sometimes this may not show up in exactly this format. I can click on this, excuse me, and a PDF of this this work order formatted for your work crews shows up, and then you can print it out on your printer to give to the work crews. If you cannot find where that case downloaded when you hit that print button, one thing you can do is go to the search bar at the very bottom of your screen, because the downloaded file goes to your download a folder. You can type download folder. Oops, and I'm spelling it wrong. And this is the download folder in my system. I can click open. And then you can look under today, or the most recent thing that was downloaded in your system, and click on that. And there is your file that was just downloaded. So you can print out to give to your work crews to take out to their job. We currently do not have, but are in the process of building a mobile app that will be particularly useful for these work crews, because they can just use their mobile phones out in the field, and they can change the status, claim, and mark as complete jobs out in the field. But at this time, we currently use this work order form and provide that for volunteer organizations to give to their work crews. Okay, I hope that this information has been helpful to you. Thank you for the volunteer work that you do to help survivors in disasters. The volunteers are needed and appreciated, and the survivors continually tell us on the phones how grateful they are, and it is just such a relief to them, providing invaluable service to them. So thank you.